I'm going to talk about a very fun verse, and I was going to tell you about it, but my director wanted me to quote it from the book itself. Obviously, you see all these little tabs that tell you some of the key quotes, and I took out a bunch of them, but this one's very interesting because it comes out from chapter 4, Dispositions, and I love this quote, but then again, what quote do I not like from Sun Tzu, The Art of War? It's as follows: one defends when his strength is inadequate. He attacks when it is abundant. And I always look at, maybe because I'm such a fan of Sun Tzu, and I'm sure there's a lot of you that are fans of Sun Tzu, I always look at business from a perspective of what would Sun Tzu think, what he would say, how he would look at a market. And a fascinating study came to us just recently with the unveiling of Microsoft's Surface 2 tablet, which was kind of ironic because it came right at the heels, right behind the introduction of the new iPhone line, the 5C and the 5S. And I was watching some Bloomberg stats, and it was really late. I think it was, I'm embarrassed to tell you, it was around 4 o'clock in the morning. I was watching Bloomberg television, and I looked at some of the stats, and I found it very fascinating. And some months back, when I looked at the failure, the mega flop failure of Surface 1, I saved the article and talked about how Microsoft obviously fumbled the ball. Well, they actually fumbled more than the ball. They fumbled away a lot of money, but typical, I guess, of Microsoft at times. But let's not be too hard for them. They have been a very successful company throughout the technology years. But a couple of key points struck me, and actually I related it to the war of the tablets. Now, we could go and talk about Apple versus Samsung, Microsoft, blah, Google, all that, but I just wanted to keep it simple on this one, and I wanted to talk about the battlefront in the tablet sector between Apple and Microsoft. And I'm going to actually tell you what Microsoft could do to turn the tide around. Yes, I know. Can you believe I'm telling you this? That I'm going to actually tell you what Microsoft should do. And if they listen to exactly what I tell them in this video, they will be able to gain market share and change the dynamics of how the battlefront and the war is being fought on the tablet. In the tablet sector. So I looked at the data from Bloomberg and IDC, and obviously the war of the tablets. The Surface was released October 25th, 2012. Sales as of July 2013 were 853 million. One of the key things that you see is that the price reduction of the Surface tablet going from $499 to $349. Because obviously nobody wanted to buy it. So they had to reduce the price, which is somewhat troubling to me because, you got such a huge marketplace of Microsoft Windows users, and for them not to be able to come out with the first version of the product, yeah, it's kind of disappointing. And the whole strategy, everybody always talks, even the media says like, well, Microsoft just continues to march forward and they'll get it eventually right. But I'm like, why not get it right the first time? Apple got it right the first time, but that's okay. That's another story that we can apply some of the other Sun Tzu principles. But obviously the write-down was 900 million. What I found fascinating is that the ad budget during that time was $898 million. And they did not break it down, but it was a combination of Surface advertising and Microsoft Windows. And I can tell you, I knew Surface was going to fail. And I know, I hate to talk about the negative aspects because I think that what advertising agencies do is really hard stuff. Coming up with the right marketing campaign and advertising, it's not so easy. But when I saw those ads where they were like bouncing around and dancing with the Surface tablets, I was like, okay, that product, $1 billion down, you'll lose and you'll fail. In fact, I told my business partner that the Surface tablet was going to be a major flop, and it was basically a simple principle that just their marketing was goofy. But forget the marketing ad campaign, and you got to go see it on YouTube. When you see it, it's like you're going to go, oh my God, it's ridiculous. But bottom line is that they spent 898 million. Let's just call it $1 billion. Let's call that $1 billion. Let's call the, hey, what's 100 million or so, plus or minus when it comes to Microsoft? Let's talk about the inventory write-down of $1 billion. And then when you compare it to another key interesting fact is that in Q2, 14.6 million iPads were sold versus 300,000, 300,000 of the Surface. So you could say this was a very ugly fight. Actually, it wasn't even really a fight. I mean, it was somebody, a gorilla pounding somebody. But, and also they correlated to market share of 39.6 for Apple and 1.8 for the Surface. So you could look at it from a couple different perspectives. First of all, Microsoft is a monster still. Let's not undervaluate the power or underestimate the power of the big giant. When you look at Microsoft today, they still have a lot of cash. Okay, I think based on the current numbers, their operating cash flow is only a measly $28 billion. Now, they're making a large portion of their revenues from enterprise software and obviously Microsoft Office, so their operating system, and I don't have the breakdown, but it's really in terms of this discussion of, you know, he attacks when it is abundant. It's very important to know that a large portion of the revenue comes from here and also from the Office. You know, so if you look at those two things, you know, they're just like a money-making machine, okay? So they have a lot of assets right there. So when you look at the Surface tablet, I mean, come on, you've got Apple, who has come out with some great products lately, and they're very product-focused. And Microsoft is not famous for coming out initially with great products. So here's what Microsoft could do to, ironically, even though they've been flanked on the operating system war that I talked about in one of the previous videos for Sun Tzu, but they could come back and do, you could say, some sort of a revenge on Apple. Apple, obviously, their business model has been high margin, and also, you know, they're basically a vertical integrator where they have the software and the hardware. Okay, and Microsoft really has focused more on just being a software player with their operating systems and all that. Okay, so now they're copying Apple, and now they're coming out obviously with Surface, and they're going towards having a solution that's a software hardware, which kind of complicates things from an ecosystem perspective with some of the partners that they've had over the years on the desktop hardware side of the business. So what do you do if you're Microsoft? Your branding is poor. Surface just got tanked. Now you got a new one. Apparently, you know, the analysts and the media are saying like, okay, yeah, well, Surface 2, yeah, like, well, maybe version 8, the Surface will get there. But they don't have the time. They do not have the luxury of time like they used to, because with the consumerization of technology, where people are now BYOD, bring your own device to the corporate, now the consumerization aspect is coming into play, and that is becoming a very dangerous position to be in for Microsoft, because if the consumer ends up bringing their own iPad to the workplace, what's going to happen to the entire value proposition that Microsoft offers to corporations today? It's going to change, and it's going to change the dynamics of it all, because once Apple gets in there on the hardware side in the Fortune 1000, from a Fortune 1000 level, what's going to happen if they end up having a major push on the Office side of the equation against Microsoft? So what do you do if you're a big bear and you're getting killed right now? Well, you can use your strength. And even though Apple has a lot more cash right now, 28 billion is nothing to sneeze at. So here's what I would do. If I was Microsoft, okay, you know, maybe I like to think simple. And in this case, when you got a lot of money like Microsoft, you actually can't think simple. What you could do is you could do the simple math, okay? They spent $2 billion playing around with the advertising, write-downs on the hardware and all that. And if you assume that the cost of Surface tablet is, let's say, average cost is, we'll do the quick math. I actually will be kind. Let's say the cost is $400. So they spent $2 billion. Okay, and now I'm going to divide that by 400. Obviously you know what that is. It's 5 million. Okay, so $400 cost, $2 billion. So now they have like they have $28 billion. So if I was Microsoft, this may sound insane, but please follow my logic. I would take Surface and I would convert it into a utility. And here's what I would do. The first phase, I would actually give X amount of units for free. Okay, now I haven't seen Surface 2.0, but hopefully it's good enough. But if it's not, at least prepare to make it really cool for Surface 3.0 that would be coming out, because obviously Microsoft likes to come out with new products. So if you assume 5 million units and you offer it for free, you're gonna think I'm insane. But you know what? You, Microsoft, get to choose your customers. So you could run this massive contest in America and say that 5 million lucky people are going to end up having a free Surface tablet. And so then what you do is you use big data, because it's a big buzzword these days, big data stuff, and you big data yourself into finding the right people to use your product. They're going to evangelize it. So imagine you have now 5 million Microsoft Surface evangelists, and I know they're not that keen on, I think they're not that keen on, I read somewhere using the word evangelist, but let's just use that. And now they tell each of their little few friends, and let's say 10 friends. So now you have 50 million people. And now what do they tell them? They tell them something really simple. They tell them that they can help them. My dear friends, have a great value proposition for you. I'm going to offer you a great opportunity from Microsoft. For a measly, I don't know, let's just say $400, let's say $10 a month, you can get a Surface tablet. And so what happens is the 5 million people that you gave away the Surface tablet to, that cost you $2 billion at $400 cost per unit, and of course it's going to go lower with 5 million units, okay? You're still behind Apple's 14.4 million for the quarter, but it's a lot better than 300,000 units. So now, instead of advertising, spending, a bunch of money on these ads where these corny little people dance around with Surface tablets everywhere, you just get the word out. And believe me, I will tell you this, if Microsoft offered me a free Surface tablet and I had to fill in my form, let's say it's like my name, what my interests are, yada, 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 what I'm going to use it for, and if I'm lucky enough to be chosen, then of course I'm going to show people the tablet and I'm going to spread the message. So there's some big data you can do, and of course you got to go through the legal and make sure that somehow, you got to deal with, I guess maybe it's sweepstakes. I'm not an attorney, but I'm sure they can figure that out. But bottom line is you give away 5 million to 10 million. Hey, let's make this more interesting. They got $28 billion. What's a couple more billion? So let's do 10 million units, okay? And let's give it away to maybe, hey, we give it to all the students in America. Hey, that's a thought. Why doesn't Microsoft, hey, so let's spending somebody else's money, might as well. Let's just give a Surface tablet to every child from the age of 6 to 18. And now let every one of them use it. And so let them be the messengers. So now the other components of marketing kick in. So my point to you is that by using a very brutal model of the utility, okay, where you actually forget about you thinking about Surface as a product, think of it as a utility, as service, you're offering it to people, then you basically kick in at a lower monthly percentage. if Microsoft has the guts to do this, I will tell you, I will be extremely surprised if they don't create havoc against Apple and Google and Amazon using this strategy, because now it becomes an interesting game. And you know what? Amazon has been doing this somewhat with Kindle. For instance, they subsidize the cost of Kindle, and I got a Kindle reader, I like it. But one of the things that irritates me about Amazon, you hear me, Amazon, is that I open up my Kindle and I see an ad. Well, I paid for it. I paid like about $250 with the warranty and all that. I'm like, I don't want to open up my Kindle and see an ad from Amazon. I never signed up for that. Cut it out, Amazon. So my point is that this is a brilliant flanking attack against Apple, Amazon, and Google by taking a Surface tablet, turning it into a utility, and then first phase is phase 1 is freemium. And please, if you give it away, Microsoft, do not, I beg you, do not bombard the people with free ads. Okay? I beg you. So that's phase 1. Phase 2, you figure out, and I think AT&T has done a great idea. They got this idea about, I think it's called AT&T Next, where now you can buy the iPad on a monthly basis, and it's prorated. It's like, I think 20 months or 2 years, and then within 12 months you can upgrade to another version of the technology. So basically what Microsoft should do is in phase 2 is figure out the utility cost per month for the user, and maybe in this case it's a combination of, maybe it's subscription only, where the consumer buys the product on a subscription only basis. It's locked in over 2 to 3 years, and maybe there's like AT&T has done, is there's a 20-month, or within 12 months you can upgrade to the new technology if Surface comes out with it. I'm sure they can figure that out, Microsoft people, they're smart. And then what you do is you can also do it maybe subscription, and then if you want to do it this way, you can add advertising to it, so that part of the cost is subsidized by the advertisers, because Microsoft now has big data around you. Okay? And then the phase 3 is absolutely to drive the cost down of the Surface tablet, lower and lower. You know, obviously we don't want to use, you know, factories across the world that use children to make cheaper products. I'm, of course, being sarcastic here. So then what you're doing is you're basically lowering the cost of this product. You're making it into a utility, and now you're expanding your market share. And you can do this now. A counter maneuver by Apple. Okay, so the reason I think this is a powerful strategy from a Sun Tzu, the Art of War perspective, is that Apple right now is focused on high margin, and then also now they've entered the medium margin business, is what I call it. You know, I think there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace about, you know, why isn't Apple competing on the low end? Apple is not about competing on the low end. In fact, you know, if you look at it from an analyst perspective, that would be corporate suicide. So obviously, the low end, low margin, Apple has given away to Asian competitors on the average. And so now you've got Microsoft. They're not dealing with any of that. They would be dealing with the utility margin, which is obviously subscription and advertising based, and of course transactions too, let's not forget that. And now what they're doing is they're getting big data about all the people that are using their tablet. And so imagine now, within a simple financial maneuver where one defends when his strength is inadequate, is turned, and in this case Microsoft is coming from a disadvantageous position to a position of an advantage when it is abundant. Now you could say, well, that's insane, Damir. I mean, you got to be crazy. You've been drinking. I promise you, I've had no beer, no martinis, no wine. I promise you, this would work in my opinion. The big question is, does Microsoft have enough guts to do it, I guess. It's such a simple formula. They have the assets to do it, and now they've changed the game because if, Apple, because they rely on high margin and medium margin, it's going to be very difficult for them to go with this strategy, especially if Microsoft is giving away Surface tablets. I mean, if I was Microsoft and I've got $28 billion, why stop at 10 million people? Why not give away 100 million tablets? Why not give away 100 million tablets over some period of time? Your bet now, huh? That would be interesting. Until next time.